Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be doing the Reread, Rewrite, and Burn book challenge fantasy romance edition. Alright guys, if you are unfamiliar with the Reread, Rewrite, and Burn book challenge, essentially I picked out all of my favorite fantasy romance books and I put the titles in this jar. So I'm going to be choosing 3 books at a time, and from those 3 books, I'm going to have to decide which book I want to reread, which one I want to rewrite, and then which book I want to burn. So this is one of my favorite videos to film. I think this is my 4th time doing this, so this should be a lot of fun and also very, very challenging because like I said, I only picked my favorite fantasy romances. So I'm hoping this video will give you some fantasy romance book recommendations, and it should be a fun time. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon, all linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the book challenge. Alright guys, so I'm going to keep this video completely spoiler-free. However, I will be telling you a little bit about each book. That way, if you haven't picked up the book yet and it sounds like something you're interested in, maybe you can get a good fantasy romance book recommendation. And with that being said, let's jump into this. I am super, super nervous. There are 2 books in here that like aren't my absolute favorite, but I had to have a number that was divisible by 3. So hopefully they get pulled first. All right. First up, we have White Horse, Black Knight, which I recently read last month. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's following this girl who has the ability to communicate with animals, and she's forced into this arranged marriage, and her soon-to-be husband asks that she travel for 21 days completely naked to honor the gods, and her only company is this guard that her future husband hired, who also has magical abilities, and it's their romance, and it was so, so good. I loved it. I cannot wait for the sequel. So that's the first book. Next up, we have, oh no, Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is the first in a YA fantasy romance series. It's very whimsical. It feels like walking into a fairy tale. But we're following this girl, Evangeline Fox, who makes a deal with a fate, Jax, of Broken Hearts. And she asks him for a favor that he will stop the wedding of her best friend and stepsister. And in exchange, she owes Jax 3 kisses of the men of his choosing. And the story goes from there. Liked the first book, loved the second book, hated the third book. So I have a lot of mixed feelings regarding that series. And last up, we have... Ooh, okay, Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is going to be hard. So I feel like most of you know what Serpent is about, where it's a vampire romance. We're following this girl that was adopted by like a king of the vampires. And she's human, but she was raised amongst vampires, which obviously is like a very dangerous existence. So when she comes of age, she wants to enter the Kajari, which is a fight to the death, and the winner is able to get a gift or a wish granted from the goddess Nyaxia. And we're pretty much following our main character as she's trying to survive these trials, and it's really, really good. So let me get the books, and then I will decide which one I want to reread, rewrite, or burn. All right, I am back with all 3 books, and I am very conflicted. So I'm going to kind of talk through my process here. I know I want to reread Serpent and the Wings of Night. That is definitely the one that is being saved out of the 3 of these books, which leaves me with Once Upon a Broken Heart and White Horse, Black Knights, and I think I rated them almost the same. I have lots and lots of thoughts. I think this is going to be a little controversial, but I'll explain my reasoning. I think I'm going to rewrite Once Upon a Broken Heart because this series had so much potential and it could have been an all-time favorite series. And honestly, this isn't the book I really want to rewrite. I really, really want to rewrite the 3rd book. However, I think I would rewrite this book to be an adult romance because I feel like that gives it even more potential to be like angsty and spicy, and some of the parts in this did feel very, very young. Obviously, it is intended for the YA reader, so like no hate towards the book because of that. I just personally, I think if this was an adult series and we fixed that last book, it could be like a 5-star favorite series of all time. So I think I will rewrite Once Upon a Broken Heart. And honestly, no hate at all towards White Horse Black Knights, but I think this is the one I would burn, only because I still haven't read the second book in the series. But this book, just off the bat, there are some interesting things that happen and go down. I didn't say what the guard that is accompanying our main character's power is, but when you find out what it is, I'm sorry, my alarm keeps going off. When you find out what it is quite shocking. Also, there's just some very comical moments in this that I feel kind of pulled me out of the story a little bit, but overall, still a very solid fantasy romance. It's just out of the three, unfortunately, this is the one that I'm going to burn. Okay, that round wasn't too bad. I feel like that could have been worse. So let's move on to round 2. First up, we have, okay, Six Scorched Roses by Carissa Broadbent. That is a vampire novella. It's my favorite novella I have ever read. Somehow it feels slow burn, and it's less than 200 pages, so just the fact the author was able to do that is amazing. But it's following this girl where her entire community is cursed to essentially turn to dust and like just perish that way. And she also has an illness that she knows is going to cause her to pass away very quickly. So she decides that she is going to try to find a cure to the curse that is on her community before she passes, and she believes that the key to doing this is with this vampire who has recently moved into the community. So she makes a deal with him in exchange for vials of his blood. She will give him 6 magical roses, and it goes from there. And I loved it, and I don't want to see what it's going to go up against. Great! Broken Bonds, which is my favorite Why Choose. It's actually the first book. Broken Bonds is the first book in the Bonds That Tie series, which is my favorite Why Choose paranormal series of all time. It is so good. Nox and North Draven are perfection, but it's following this girl that lives in a community where people or women have bonded, and if you have a bonded group, you are just so much more powerful, and our main character ends up fleeing her bonded group prior to the events of the first book, and the book starts with her being dragged back to face her bonded. So the first book is a little bit of a bully romance, but it becomes so epic and so good as you progress, and I just love it. So this is gonna be a bad round, I can already tell. And last up, we have Zodiac Academy, The Awakening, and the reason it is so small is because I literally just wrote ZA. Yeah. Okay, I know which one I want to rewrite. Let me get the books and I will be back. I just realized I didn't say what the Zodiac Academy is, but the Zodiac Academy is a fantasy romance. We're following these 2 girls that on their 18th birthday, they find out that they are actually Fae royals, and the way to gain their inheritance is to complete courses at the Zodiac Academy. But when they get there, they find out that there are already these celestial heirs that are ruling the school, and it is a bully romance for the first few books, but it becomes so much more. I will say I have such a love-hate relationship with the Zodiac Academy right now, just because I was obsessed with the first few books, despite the fact they are not written very well. But then the last 3 books, I just feel like have dragged on so much longer than this series needed to go. Like, I just want an ending, and I want it to be clear, concise, and just absolutely knock it out of the park in order for me to love this series again, because I just feel like we're dragging it out longer than it needs to go. Okay, rant over. So I have the books, and they're actually some of the prettiest books I own. So Six Scorched Roses. Honestly, okay, wait, we're not gonna do that. Hold on. So we have Zodiac Academy, which is I forget, I think that this is the Bookish Box Special Edition. And then Broken Bonds, which I also believe is actually the Bookish Box Special Edition. This is the last series I ever bought from the Bookish Box and will ever buy because it was over 7 months delayed. But besides that, okay. I think I was originally going to say I'm going to reread Six Scorched Roses, no question. However, I have reasons for this. I actually think I'm going to reread Broken Bonds by J. Bree. Now, this series is not perfect. It definitely has its problems, but it is like a guilty pleasure. Absolutely love this book and series overall. So I think I'm going to reread Broken Bonds. I'm going to rewrite Six Scorched Roses to make it a full-length novel. There is no criticism I have for this novella. I think it is perfect. However, I want more. I want so much more. I love these characters. I could have had parts drawn out even more. So I would rewrite this just so it was full length and I could stay in this world a little bit longer with this romance and these characters. So 100%, I just want more. So I would rewrite Six Scorched Roses, which means I would burn Zodiac Academy. And honestly, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. First off, this is not my favorite book in the Zodiac Academy series, the first book. I feel like you really have to get through this first book, get into the second book, and then it starts like really getting good, really clicking. The writing in this is a little bit, I can't turn my alarm off. I'm so sorry, guys. It's like an issue with my phone. But yeah, so there's a lot of issues I have with this. So I'm gonna burn Zodiac Academy, unfortunately, which makes me so sad because like I loved this series originally. But yeah, I stand by that. I feel really good about that round. So I was feeling really confident, but I just looked over at the books that we have left, and now I'm unbelievably nervous. You guys can't see them, but let's just say like the classic fantasy romance books that everyone adores are left. And I'm gonna be really sad if I have to pick between them. So we have, Fourth Wing, the first book by Rebecca Yarros. I feel like everyone knows what this book is about at this point, but it is a dragon fantasy romance. We're following this girl that was born with a chronic illness that causes her ligaments and her muscles to be very weak. So she believed she was going to become a scribe and join the scribe quadrant. But instead, when she comes of age, her general writer mother tells her no daughter of hers is going to become a scribe. So instead, she has to compete against other cadets to hopefully bond with a dragon and then gain magical abilities. Unfortunately, all of the other cadets are trying to kill her, and dragons are unbelievably dangerous. So personally, I loved Fourth Wing. Mixed feelings on Iron Flame. I still really enjoyed it, and I'm so excited for book 3. And now we're getting into like the classic favorite books, Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the Throne of Glass series, which is one of my favorite fantasy romance series of all time. It is YA, however, as you progress, it becomes a lot more mature, and Heir of Fire is my second favorite in that series. So, okay. And okay, this is good. And last up we have Kingdom of Stars and Shadows, which is one of those books that I was like, I don't love this, but also I know it's very popular and a lot of people do. So if you're unfamiliar with Kingdom of Stars and Shadows, that is a fantasy romance. We're following a girl that was born with a birthmark that designated her as having very powerful blood for the Fae. So her mother makes a promise with the Queen of the Fae saying when her daughter comes of age, she will marry the Prince of the Fae, allow her daughter to give him his blood, and that way power him up. So the book essentially starts with her heading to the Fae world to marry the Prince of the Fae, which she does not want to do, and then she meets his brother. There's a bit of a love triangle, and it goes from there. I actually loved the story. I just felt like the second half of that book devolved into straight smut, and not in a good way. Like, I love a good spicy fantasy romance if it's done well, but this was just a lot at once with like not a lot of foreshadowing. So didn't love it. But let me get the books and then I will decide. I feel like this is actually going to be a really easy round. All right, I have the books. So first up, like I said, this round is going to be easy. I am going to not reread this book. I am going to reread Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. Like I said, second favorite in the Throne of Glass series, right under Kingdom of Ash. And that's just because it is an epic conclusion. But yeah, I love this book. There's a character introduced in this book who's one of my all-time favorite bookish boyfriends. So yeah, I will 100% reread Heir of Fire. I will rewrite Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros because while I did absolutely love this book, I think it did have some, pacing issues, and also the characters felt very young despite the fact that they're supposed to be in their 20s. I feel like that could have been changed up a bit. But overall, I wouldn't make a lot of major changes to this book, but there are a few that I would definitely change. So I would rewrite Fourth Wing, And I am burning Kingdom of Stars and Shadows just because this was not a standout read for me. I didn't love the second half of the book, and most of my friends that have continued with the series have ended up either DNFing it or rating it very, very low. So I feel like this is the perfect one to burn. And we are down to the final 2 rounds. So let's see what we get. Yeah. So first up we have, Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This is a YA gothic fantasy that I really enjoyed. I think it was one of my favorite books of 2 years ago. But this is following Signa Faro, and when she was a baby, her mother took her to this party where everyone ended up being poisoned and passes away. So Death shows up in corporeal form, ready to usher in the souls to the afterlife. And when he goes to take Signa's soul, he realizes that she is immortal and he can't take her. So he becomes very intrigued by this and kind of follows Signa as she's growing up, which leads the town Signa is growing up in to believe she is cursed because, one, she is not dying when she should, and also all of her guardians keep passing away kind of mysteriously and suddenly. So the story goes from there, and like I said, I loved it. And next up we have, Anastasia by Sophie Lark. So this was Sophie Lark's debut into fantasy romance. I personally adored this book. I will say the pacing in the beginning is very, very slow. However, you just feel so emotionally connected to Anastasia and her family, and it was just unbelievably well researched, and just I loved it so much. The only thing I disliked about Anastasia is a trope that is utilized at the very end of the book, but other than that, I think it was an amazing read. And last up, we have, I was waiting for this one, A Court of Mist and Fury. It is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, and if you are familiar with my channel, you know it is my favorite fantasy romance book of all time. Yeah, that's gonna be really tough. If you're unfamiliar with ACOTAR, we're following Farah, who's a human girl living on the border of the Fae lands. One day she accidentally kills a Fae, mistaking it for a wolf, and for repayment of doing this killing, she has to go live with the High Lord of the Spring Court. So the first book is a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but then it turns into the most epic fantasy romance of all time, and I love it so, so much. So let me grab those books, and then I will decide which one I'm gonna burn. All right, I have the physical books in front of me, and I will say it was very easy to decide which one I'm gonna reread. A Court of Mist and Fury. This book is perfection. This is one of those books I will hear no criticism on. I love everything about this book. I love the inner circle. I love the love interest. I love the main character. I love the plot. I love the spicy seeds. It's just everything. This book is perfect. So, definitely going to be rereading this. And I have many times. I think I've reread A Court of Mist and Fury at least 6 times at this point. And I already want to do a reread this year. So, there's that. Which leaves me to Belladonna and Anastasia. And I believe I rated both of them 5 stars. Like, I enjoyed both of them immensely. I feel like I have to rewrite, though, Anastasia. And the only reason, first of all, the writing in this is amazing. I love the way Sophie Lark wrote this book. It feels very different from her mafia romances that I also absolutely adore. It's just this, I would not have been able to tell this was the same writer. I feel like she has a very different style with this, and I appreciated it. I will say I will cut out a little bit of the beginning just because it was so slow-paced, and I understand why. However, it took me a very long time to get into this book, and had I been reading it like this month when my TBR is insane, I probably would DNF this until I had more time. So I will rewrite this. I will also change that trope and just get rid of it and just let everything, I'm not going to say anything, but I will get rid of that trope at the end of this book. Which leaves me with Belladonna by Adeline Grace, which unfortunately, I really don't want to burn. This is probably the book I most regret burning so far in this video. I love this book. But I just feel like Anastasia was just a slight step above. So unfortunately, we are going to burn Belladonna. And that brings us to our final round. And really, I don't have to pull them out of this jar because I can see the books next to me. However, let's just do it for consistency's sake. So we have A Court of Silver Flames, which is the 4th book in the ACOTAR series. It is following Nesta and her love interest. I'm going to try to keep this pretty spoiler-free. And I have a lot of mixed feelings on A Court of Silver Flames. I've read it twice. I think the first time I read it, I gave it 3 stars. The second time I read it, I gave it 4 stars, but it's still one of my least favorite SJM books. I like it more than House of Sky and Breath, but still, it's pretty low. And then we have Hurricane Wars, which I have very mixed feelings on. So Hurricane Wars is Reylo fanfic. It is very Star Wars coded, and I do a terrible job of explaining the plot of this book, but we're essentially following this girl that harbors this light ability that no one is supposed to be able to have. And there's a war going on essentially between like the shadow side and the light side. And she's team light, and she ends up accidentally using her ability in front of the prince of the shadow side, who believes his entire family was murdered by a light wielder. So they go to kill each other, but then they have this serious chemistry while trying to kill each other, and they end up protecting each other, and it kind of goes from there. And there's a lot going on. I did enjoy it, and I want to read the sequel, but also it just felt very messy, is like the best way I can describe it. Which means last up, which I did not. I can't believe this is actually the last book. I don't know why I'm looking at this. It is Crescent City, House of Flame and Shadow. So let's grab the books, and I can't really say anything about Crescent City in terms of the plot, besides the fact the first book is following Bryce, who is living in Lunathian, and she has a few best friends, Danica, Juniper, and Fury Axtar. And she gets drunk one night at a party. She comes back home, and there is a murder that has taken place. So Bryce, along with a fallen angel named Hunt Athalar, need to team up to solve this murder. And it goes from there. And the third book released last week, and I am still trying to recover. So yeah, there's that. So let me grab the books, and then I will have a very tough decision on my hands. Okay, I have the 3 books in front of me. I honestly don't know what I am doing. I was confident which one I wanted to burn, but now that I'm looking at them, I have a lot of thoughts. Okay, I will say, I know I'm going to be rereading House of Flame and Shadow, and I can't really give you guys any other things or any other reasons because everything I feel like is a spoiler. But I loved this book. I think this is one of my favorite. I can't even say anything. I will reread this. And I do plan on rereading this very, very soon. I just feel like this book, in terms of pacing, never stops in terms of action. I feel like House of Sky and Breath, I was unbelievably bored while reading. I did a recap video for it. It was dreadful. I hated every second of it. This book is the opposite, where like, you can't stop reading it because there is something unbelievable happening every other page. So I will reread House of Flame and Shadow, which leaves me with these 2. And I don't know. So I think, so many people are going to dislike me for this choice, including my husband. I think I'm going to rewrite Hurricane Wars because it had such potential to be amazing. Like, there were parts of this book I was so unbelievably hooked, but then the author would like start describing or trying to explain the politics of why this war is happening, and I'd be like, I don't know what is going on. And I've read dense fantasy romance. Like, I've read most of Brandon Sanderson, so it's not that. It's just the fact that this felt very all over the place, and I feel like if it was just a little bit more streamlined, it could be an amazing read. So I would want to rewrite this. Not me personally, like I wouldn't do a good job rewriting this, but I feel like there's someone out there that could rewrite this book and make it amazing. Which means I'm gonna burn A Court of Silver Flames. Here's the deal. I don't love this book, and I just feel like there's so many things, like the stairs. There is a way for Nesta to get down those stairs without having any sort of physical requirement. She can slide down those stairs. There's just a lot of little things in this book that I was not a fan of. The Valkyrie storyline I actually loved, but I feel like it took away a little bit from the romance. There's just a lot happening in this book. So overall, I will burn Silver Flames. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I just made a lot of enemies by doing that. However, I think I still gave it like 3.54 stars. Like it's fine. It's just not at the level I feel with most of SJM's books, where I am like, I will hear no criticism. They are my all-time favorite. This one, I have a list of reasons why I disliked it. So unfortunately, I will be burning a quart of silver flames. Alright guys, that is it for my reread, rewrite, and burn fantasy romance edition book challenge. I was actually thinking I could do this with fantasy romance books that I didn't enjoy and have to decide which ones I want to reread. I thought that could be fun. Let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in seeing down in the comments below. And once again, I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda and Erin. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye!